Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Welcome to FOMO Friday. Yes, every Friday here on the podcast, we bring you the stories of the week that you probably should know. Maybe you've heard about them, maybe you haven't. But we know that you want to know what's going on now that you're not listening to propaganda media. And so we bring you those stories. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this very first one. It's good news. An Arkansas law shielding kids from transgender medical procedures that passed 4 years ago can now be enforced after a federal appeals court overturned a block on the legislation. Now, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit ruled Tuesday in an 8-2 decision to allow the Save Adolescents from Experimentation Act, or SAFE, to go into effect. The law prohibits doctors from performing transgender procedures on kids and blocks them from referring kids for such procedures as well. Quote, the question is whether this nation's history and tradition, as well as its historical understanding of ordered liberty, support the right of a parent to obtain for his or her child a medical treatment that, although the child desires it and the doctor approves, the state legislature deems inappropriate for minors. This court finds no such right in this nation's history and tradition, and this is what the majority wrote in their opinion. So, again, just like a lot of law type stuff and legal type speak, there was some intricacies to this, and so to say that even if a parent wants something for the kid, even if the doctor says it's okay, the state has deemed it inappropriate, and so it can't happen. And in this case, obviously, very, very good. But you can see how that might turn with an issue that might not be so good. But for this, very good. The ruling comes just weeks after the Supreme Court issued a landmark decision in June upholding Tennessee's ban on transgender procedures for kids. And the justices pointed to the Tennessee case multiple times throughout their opinion. The law blocks procedures like removing the breasts of girls who identify as boys, genital procedures, and prescribing kids puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. These procedures have been shown to cause irreversible consequences for things like bone density, fertility, and development. Now, Arkansas was the first state to pass such a law, and now over 24 states have enacted similar legislation. Quote, this is a win for common sense and for our kids. That's what Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders wrote on X. And Arkansas, first in the nation law to protect kids from life-altering gender experiments, is back in effect. Now, again, it took like 4 years for this to happen, but the good news is it did happen. Now, speaking again of good news, some of Washington's top museums feature exhibits laced with an aggressively left-wing spin on American history. And a Daily Wire review of the Smithsonian exhibits found this to still be true. Ahead of the of America's 250th anniversary, President Donald Trump is taking action to weed out that ideology and historical spin from these institutions. Americans who visit the Smithsonian museums in Washington, D.C. might expect to learn about, the factual history, let's say, of the United States, to view American art and artifacts and things like this, and to be inspired by tales of American courage and valor. But visitors are often greeted with overt ideological content, gender ideology and LGBTQ propaganda, or aggressive reframing of events like the COVID-19 pandemic or the Black Lives Matter movement. Well, guess what? That's going to change. In an August 12th letter, Trump officials Lindsey Halligan, Vince Haley, and Russ Vaughn informed Smithsonian Secretary Lonnie Bunch, that's an interesting name, but Lonnie Bunch, that the Trump administration will be conducting a comprehensive internal review of selected Smithsonian Museum exhibits, and in fulfillment of the president's executive order restoring truth and sanity to the American history. The move comes amid widespread concerns about how Washington institutions have repackaged and re-represented American history in the nation's capital, or interspersed woke ideology throughout the Smithsonian museums. Now, why critics and media such as ABC News argue that the president is trying to make the museums align with his personal view of American history, the president's team maintains that American history should be framed or packaged through no type of ideological lens. Quote, "It is an honor to work alongside the Smithsonian in reviewing its museums and exhibits, with the shared goal of ensuring this treasured institution reflects the very best America has to offer: accuracy, excellence, and the richness of our shared history." That's what Halligan, that's the special agent to the president and senior associate staff secretary, told the Daily Wire. Quote, "While certain ideological influences have permitted the Smithsonian over time, our goal is for the Smithsonian to be fact-based, scholarly, and historically sound." I mean, how do you argue with that, right? Well, the current Smithsonian exhibits are publicly available, so everyone can see firsthand what we have observed, she said. And that includes the National Museum of American History, where visitors were greeted upon entry by a Pride Progress flag that consists of the white, pink, purple, black, and brown stripes representing the transgender pride flag and the LGBTQ people of color. I can't tell you what all the flags mean, but that flag is featured at the museum's entrance on Constitution Avenue, according to tourists and visitors of the Smithsonian. Now, down the hall, the "How Did We Become U.S.?" Many Voices, One Nation exhibit focuses little on the people who actually founded the United States, and instead focuses heavily on slavery, the southern border, the unsettling of the continent, as they put it, that occurred as Europeans carrying disease with them to America, and more. Well, similarly, a Rally Against Racism exhibit highlights how San Francisco Chinatown residents protested Asian American hate at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The exhibit quotes community leaders Julie Tang saying, "We want everyone to know what we were worried about: our lives, our jobs, our businesses, and our survival in the United States." Okay. The exhibit's text reads, quote, "As COVID-19 spread across the United States in early 2020, San Francisco's Chinatown community was already shunned, even targeted, by those who considered the disease the China virus, because Asian Americans have been subject to racist scapegoating and violence so often in the past. They organized a rally to call on their fellow citizens and residents to fight the virus, not the people," unquote. Well, at the upcoming National Museum of American Latino, the institution's first exhibit will be Presente, a Latino history of the United States, which will tell the U.S. history from the perspective of the diverse Latinas and Latinos who lived it and live it today. The perspective embraces a variety of left-wing causes, portrays the United States as an oppressor, and pushes for a more sympathetic view of immigrants, while notably failing to highlight the authoritarianism of figures like Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez. The exhibit describes the U.S. as having stolen about a third of Mexico in 1848, for example, and claims that Cubans came to America in search of economic opportunity rather than escaping communism. It also suggests that the Texas Revolution was, quote, what Anglo-Saxon, unquote, settlers defending slavery from Mexican abolitionists, according to examples provided to the Daily Wire by tourists and visitors of the Smithsonian. And down the street at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, the Cell Phone Unseen Connections exhibit features images of violence against Black Americans, quoting cartoon images of individuals saying things such as, I can't imagine the Black Lives Matter movement happening without cell phones. So much of it was driven by footage of injustice that people captured with their camera phones. Without brave bystanders using their phones to witness wrongdoing, the movement may not have gained ground. Yeah. Here's another one. Social movements around the world in the early 21st century attest to the impact of our mobile devices in connecting people, speaking truth to power, and sharing regional events widely in an instant. The image text continues with, but forces the oppression use cell phones too. These powerful tools can catalyze both libertarian and bondage. Well, in the National Museum of African Art, the John Akamafra 5 wow, it's easy for me to say, Mermuchans, I guess is how you pronounce that. It's an exhibit, okay? And it's in the Museum of African Art. And it addresses insights into post-colonialism, disproportionate experiences, and memory through the dramatic 55-minute-long film that examines the global COVID-19 pandemic, murder of George Floyd, and the worldwide protests in support of Black Lives Matter in this visual essay of our times. Yeah, I'll probably agree with that one, right? Well, this exhibit is located several stories underground, featuring audio and video from this period, painting a picture of a country where ruthless white supremacists police murder Black Americans and shut down their protests. Quote, in one kaleidoscopic sequence, for instance, stills of the police officer Derek Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck are together with photographs of the executed revolutionary Che Guevara and the resistance painter Andrea Mantegna. Lamentation over the dead Christ, explains the New York Times. Here's another. Here's the quote. There's something really Christ-like about George Floyd's aura in death. This is what the exhibit's creator told the Times. He said, part of it is just the very public nature of the death. The banality and the stupidity of it, the sheer awfulness of it, seems to transform him into something else, unquote. Well, in the National Portrait Gallery and the Smithsonian American Art Museum, countless photographs, portraits, and pieces of artwork contain political and suggestive rhetoric designed to point the viewer in an ideological direction. For example, the text next to a painting of Francis Scott Key includes a quick sentence about how, quote, abolitionists noted the irony of a song about the land of the free written by a staunch advocate of slavery with narrow views of freedom, unquote. That's what the Smithsonian has next to Francis Scott Key. And in the National Museum of Asian Art, which is supposed to highlight the artistic traditions of Asians, some exhibits focus on gender, sexuality, and power. The exhibit devotes significant real estate to Chapel Baudry, who is a man who liked to play female roles, fixating on how this man reflects the exploitation of identity that the museum is so focused on. Well, the museum also highlights the work of Chintra Ganesh, who attempts to challenge patriarchal norms and empower her female and queer subjects by constructing alternate visual narratives while drawing on South Asian visual traditions as well as the canonical and contemporary feminist and queer scholarships, unquote. Well, Ganesh worked, their work includes graphic pictures of bodies, supposedly women's bodies, with their entrails hanging out, women in sexual positions or with their limbs contorted in confusing arrays, and more. But you get the idea, right? Earlier this year, Trump removed Kim Saget from her role as director of the National Portrait Gallery, calling her, quote, a highly partisan person and a strong supporter of DEI. And the Daily Wire reported at the time that Saget openly pushed diversity, equity, and inclusion from her position at the helm of the United States Museum. And she is a longtime Democratic donor, served since 2013 as the director of Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery, which contains about, believe it or not, about 1,700 portraits of the United States presidents, and is located less than a mile away from the White House. In review of her remarks to the media, it shows that she was heavily focused on promoting and highlighting art based on ideology. Her LinkedIn profile describes the National Portrait Gallery as, quote, not just a place to see famous Americans, but a place that explores identity as a social construct that has been shaped in equal measure by opportunity and ability, prejudice and fear, by taking a cross-disciplinary approach. Okay. On her watch, the caption under Trump's portrait read, impeached twice on charges of abuse of power and incitement of insurrection after supporters attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of 2021. He was acquitted by the Senate in both trials. After losing to Joe Biden in 2020, Trump mounted a historic comeback in 2024 election. He is the only president, aside from Grover Cleveland, to have won a non-consecutive second term. Well, her departure followed Trump's March 27th executive order restoring truth and sanity to American history, which promised to restore the Smithsonian Institute to its rightful place as a symbol of inspiration and American greatness, igniting the imagination of young minds, honoring the richness of American history, and innovation, and instilling pride in the hearts of all Americans, as it puts. Also, quote, once widely respected as a symbol of American excellence and a global icon of cultural achievement, the Smithsonian Institute has, in recent years, come under the influence of a divisive race-centered ideology, is what the order stated. And it also said this shift has promoted narratives that portray American and Western values as inherently harmful and oppressive. So anyway, you get the idea. It looks like things are getting cleaned up there, and that is a good thing. This next article, I don't know if you consider it a good thing. I guess it's good that it's being exposed. Let's put it that way, okay? Democrat Senator Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, right? He directed the leaking of classified documents to target President Donald Trump and influence public opinion, according to a whistleblower that claimed in newly declassified FBI documents. A whistleblower who worked for the Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee. So he worked for the Democrats, okay, on the House Intelligence Committee, told the FBI that Schiff had pushed for the leaking of classified documents in meeting with Trump's election in 2016, according to a summary of the interview obtained by Just the News. Now, Schiff was a major proponent of the discredited narrative that Trump schemed with the Russians to get elected in 2016. And the whistleblower claimed that Schiff orchestrated a plan to hurt Trump by leaking classified documents, according to the interview. Quote, in this meeting, Schiff stated the group would leak classified information which was derogatory to President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and Schiff stated the information would be used to indict President Trump. This is what the FBI memo said. And then it said, there's a redacted name, stated this would be illegal, and upon hearing his concerns, unnamed members of the meeting reassured this person that they would not be caught leaking classified information. Now, the whistleblower believed that this leak would be unethical, illegal, and treasonous. Thank you. The whistleblower was later approached about leaking classified information in a Senate meeting by unnamed individuals, according to the FBI memo. Now, the interview documents were declassified by FBI Director Kash Patel, which is nice, right? He said on a post on X, he said, we found it. We declassified it. Now Congress can see how classified information was leaked to shape political narratives and decide if the institutions were weaponized against the American people. Over the course of several years, the whistleblower conducted multiple interviews with the FBI, which were then summarized by the agent who conducted the interviews in a series of memos. And in one August 2017 interview, the whistleblower said that Democrats on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence believed that they could bring down Trump with documents leaked to the media. Quote, Schiff believed Russia hijacked the election and the United States was in the middle of a constitutional crisis. Classified information began leaking to the media. The Democratic majority leadership of HPSCI was aware of the leaks but was under the impression that leaking the information was one way to topple the administration and fix the constitutional crisis, is what the whistleblower told the FBI. In another interview from December 5th of that year, 2017, the whistleblower reportedly said that Schiff was particularly upset after the election of Trump because he believed that Hillary Clinton would have appointed him the CIA director. Oh, there we go. now we know why, the big reason why Schiff was going to such illegal ends here, because he thought he was the next CIA director, and then suddenly Trump won, not Hillary. The whistleblower claimed that Schiff told staff to gather information about Trump and Russia that would, quote, be made public through the media in order to compel public opinion. So this just shows you how hand in hand, this is why I call it the propaganda media, because this shows you just how hand in hand the Democratic Party, liberals there, and the major media are tied together so tightly. In one instance, the whistleblower noticed that a sensitive document viewed in the summer of 2017 by a few members of the committee appeared in the news almost verbatim within 24 hours of its review. The whistleblower suspected that Representative Eric Swalwell played a role in the leak and noted that Swalwell previously had been warned to be careful because he had a reputation for leaking classified information. According to the whistleblower, Schiff believed that the strategy of leaking documents was protected by the speech and debate clause that gives lawmakers immunity for what they say during a legislative action. And a spokesperson for Schiff called the whistleblower allegations not credible. But yeah, I mean, obviously, this is kind of a big deal because it's just more and more proof that the federal government was weaponized against Donald Trump and others. And in this case, they were leaking, they were doing illegal things by leaking information that was classified. And they were doing it in order to try to spin a narrative, which of course wasn't true, as we know now. But they were trying to make it true, and they were trying to take out a president they didn't like. Well, wanted to end today's podcast with a celebrity. Like I've said before, I'm not a celebrity guy. I don't really follow these things that much at all. But you've asked for it, and this one kind of I thought was kind of interesting. Bravo star Jennifer Welsh is getting dragged on social media for suggesting that Trump supporters should be barred from dining at Chinese, Indian, and Mexican restaurants, but should instead be forced to bring their, quote, fat asses over to Cracker Barrel, unquote. The Sweet Home Oklahoma star, which, again, telling you I've never even seen that, but anyway, she made the comments during an appearance on the I've Had It podcast. I've Had It podcast, okay. Quote, I've had it with white people that triple trumped, that have the nerve and the audacity to walk into a Mexican restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, an Indian restaurant, go to perhaps their gay hairdresser. The mom of two said in this in kind of an angry way is how she put this. Now, she said triple Trump. That refers to agreeing with the president's policies on immigration, DEI, and LGBTQ issues, according to the New York Post. And according to an internet slang database, Triple Trumper can also refer to a person who voted for President Trump in all three of the last presidential elections, 2016, 2020, and 2024. She said, I don't think you should be able to enjoy anything but Cracker Barrel, she said. And she continued on with her rant. She said, if you want to triple Trump, if you want to browbeat DEI, if you want to browbeat gay people, if you want to browbeat black people, as you have been doing for hundreds of years, white people that triple trumped should be boycotted, banned from enjoying the best thing that America has to offer, which is multiculturalism. That's what she said in her rant. She said, get your fat asses out of the Mexican restaurant. Get your fat asses over to Cracker Barrel because nobody wants to see your effing smug ass, is as she puts it. Tiny, weeny, pink arm. Big gut around. And she went on. Anyway, nobody wants to see that poop. No one. Well, she obviously has a pretty good mouth. But anyway, we tried to make it family friendly. Commentators on social media shot back at the TV personality by saying things like, it's always the most intolerant and hateful, pretending to be the ones that love everyone, is what one New York Post writer reported. Here's another one. Uber Karen. I voted for Trump, and I'm having a burrito with chorizo and spinach dip for lunch today. Here's another one. It says, so minorities are just flavors to her. This explains so much. Yeah. And one more. It says, what an idiotic comment, completely detached from reality. Legal immigrants are not illegal immigrants. Stop conflating the two. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that you could just go off on this gal about. I mean, guess you don't have to be very bright in order to be an actress. You just have to, memorize lines and and pretend you're somebody you're not. I guess is how it works. But anyway, sounds like she stepped in it a little bit, and now we get to kind of tee off with some pretty funny stuff. So anyway, love to hear from you on it. You can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Of course, you can always go to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you share and like there. And thank you for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.